Okay, it's 2:30. We'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everybody. We'll bring to order the Washoe County Open Space and Regional Parks Commission meeting for Tuesday, April 6th. Roll call, please.
Stephanie Chen.
Here.
Heidi Anderson. I believe she is not here. Douglas Doolittle.
Here.
Thomas Quinn.
Here.
Darla Lee. I believe she's absent. Chris Menzel.
Present.
Jennifer Oliver.
Here.
Greg Shorts.
Here.
Heidi Anderson actually just arrived.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead and go into the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Shorts, do you mind leading us today?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty. All right.
That was
Give it
good.
a 98%.
Do we have any public comments today?
No, we don't.
Okay. Item 4, approval of the agenda for the Open Space and Regional Parks Commission meeting of April 6th.
Move to approve. Doug Doolittle.
Second, Greg Shorts.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Item 5, approval of the minutes for the Open Space and Regional Parks Commission meeting of March 2nd, 2021. Any corrections, additions?
And this is Lindsay Waddell, Chair Chen. I do recommend taking public comment before voting on an action item.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Well, first asking the commissioners, are there any additions or corrections, amending languages on the minutes? Okay,
No.
Hearing none, I'll open it to public comment first. Any public comment for this item?
No, there isn't.
Now we can, okay, perfect. We'll go ahead and, does anyone?
Move to approve. Doug Doolittle.
Second, Jennifer Oliver.
So, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Item 6, acknowledgement and recognition of park operations staff for their outstanding service and contributions to Washoe County.
This is Eric Krupp. Today, we do not have any staff recognition.
Thank you, Eric. Item 7, Eagle Scout presentation.
For the record, Colleen Wallace-Barnum, Park Operations Superintendent. There is no Eagle Scout presentation today.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and move on to item 8, presentation, discussion, and possible recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners to approve a lease agreement between Washoe County and Great Basin Institute for the lease of the residents at Galena Creek Regional Park for consideration of in-kind services in the approximate value of $28,400 to the Community Services Department and for a term of 36 months commencing April 13th, 2021 through April 12th, 2024.
Okay, for the record, Colleen Wallace-Barnum, Park Operations Superintendent. Thanks everybody, staff and commissioners for being here today. It's a lovely Tuesday afternoon. Feels like springtime, which means it's going to snow sometime soon. But on this item, just wanted to make sure everybody understands. So if there's any questions, certainly let me know. But just to give a little bit more background, when we opened the Galena Creek Visitor Center, which is located on federal land, it's on Forest Service property, adjacent to Galena Creek Regional Park, we opened in 2008. Which if all of you remember in 2008, we were right at the crux of the economic recession. So we were trying to figure out how we were going to operate the visitor center. And At the time, staff had recommended that we look at entering into an agreement with Great Basin Institute. They've been great partners for a variety of different other projects that we were involved with. And they actually agreed that they would manage the visitor center in lieu of rent for the residents at Galena Creek Park. So we entered into an agreement with them back in 2008, and the agreements are generally for 3 years and then have a renewal for about 2 years. The way the agreement was written, the last time we brought this to all of you, the renewal actually required Board of County Commission approval. So when Eric and I were discussing moving forward with the renewal, we thought it might just be good to move forward with a new agreement so we could start from scratch and sort of change the language so that it would be an automatic renewal. But just to give some background, back to the background, they've been in the residence since 2008. They've been assisting with the operations of the visitor center. And really, other than during the COVID shutdown, they've met all of the terms of the agreement. They've done a great job. Really bringing people to the visitor center. They do a variety of different nature-based programming, and it's been a really good win-win situation. And I will say win-win-win because we actually have a separate agreement between the Forest Service, Washoe County, and Great Basin Institute, and it's called an interpretive agreement, which is also due for renewal this year. So that'll be coming back later in the year. But just wanted to make sure everybody was aware. They do have, they hire AmeriCorps, much like Truckee Meadows Parks Foundation. And those AmeriCorps staff help manage a lot of their programs, their residential kids programs, in addition to summer and fall break, and then even winter break programming. So they've done a really nice job for our community. So just so everybody knows, with COVID restrictions, they will not be doing their residential program at Camp Weechemy this year, but they will be offering day camps for the children during the summer break. And that'll be the first time they're returning back to programming since COVID's for school-age children. So we anticipate being back up and operating. It's not open yet. We're still that. And then I'm happy to answer any questions. I can certainly share my screen that helps with the recommendation and the possible motion. But I'm happy to answer any questions in regards to this lease agreement.
Colleen, this is Greg.
Yes.
Have you done an inspection of the property since they've taken over or recently?
That's a great question. So they have essentially had staff in there, and they revolve, so the AmeriCorps staff are sometimes anywhere from 6 months to 1 year appointments. In October, that was the last of their AmeriCorps team that had lived in the residence, and then they were vacant. They didn't have anybody in the house. During that time, they didn't have anybody in the house. Facilities actually did go in and kind of take care of some minor repairs that needed to be done. We had a water-related issue we took care of. So yes, it has been inspected, and it's in good condition.
Great. That's just something I'd want to see happen before signing off on everything.
Absolutely.
Cool. Great.
I'm going to share my screen so I can show you the possible motion, and hopefully that'll come up here real soon. Can everybody see that okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for the background and overview, Colleen. If there's not any other questions before we get into any motions, I'll open it up to public comments since it is an action item. Are there any public comment on this item? Hearing none, okay, we can continue on discussion, or if someone wants to make a motion, feel free to do so.
I'll make, this is Tom Gwynn, I'll make a motion. I move to recommend to the Board of County Commissioners to approve a lease agreement between Washoe County and the Great Basin Institute, in-kind services, approximate amount $28,400 to the Community Services Department as consideration for lease fees for use of the resident housing at Galena Creek Regional Park, and allow for a 36-month term commencing April 13, 2021 through April 12, 2024.
Well, second,
Commissioner Quinn.
Heidi Anderson.
Thank you, Heidi. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to item 9. Presentation, discussion, and possible recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners to execute an amended easement agreement and amended easement deed between Washoe County and the Truckee Meadows Water Authority to change an existing access and water facilities easement from plus or minus 11,802 square feet to plus or minus 20,425 square feet, and to amend the terms of a temporary easement totaling plus or minus 23,588 square feet to allow for the construction, installation, and maintenance of a temporary below-ground water line on APN 534-52101, part of Sugarloaf Peak Open Space, at an additional appraised value of $1,485.
All right, good afternoon, Commissioners. This is Sophia Kirschenman, Park Planner with Washoe County Planning for the record. I do have a presentation, so I will share my screen right quick. Is it showing up as a presentation for you all? Okay.
Yes.
Excellent. As Commissioner Chen, Chair Chen just mentioned, this item is for an easement amendment and an amended easement deed between Washoe County and the Truckee Meadows Water Authority, or TUMWA, on Washoe County's Sugarloaf Peak open space property. So Sugarloaf Peak is located just north of Calle de la Plata and east of Pyramid Highway. It is in Spanish Springs. And a quick reminder that last year, the Park Commission recommended approval, and the Board of County Commissioners ultimately did approve a permanent access and water facilities easement and a temporary construction easement to be held by TUMWA. And these easements are for the purpose of constructing, maintaining, and operating an underground water line and an access road. And the purpose of that water line is to provide system redundancy and potable water supply to the approved Harris Ranch subdivision. You can see there that the future Harris Ranch subdivision will be located just to the northwest of the Sugarloaf Peak open space area. TUMWA does have an existing water line and access road up to their water tank. As you can see here, it's shown in that kind of red-orange color there. The existing Sugarloaf Peak trail system is shown in blue, and the approved easement area is shown there in yellow. You can see it's a direct connection from their existing water line and access road to the future Harris Ranch subdivision. And then once that access road is complete, this will also provide access to the subdivision from the trail system and vice versa. So people who live in that future subdivision will be able to access the trail system, as you can see there. Here is another view of the easement area, of the approved existing easement area. And so this current request is to amend the permanent access and water facility easement area from approximately 11,802 square feet to approximately 20,425 square feet. According to TUMWA, when the easement was originally granted last year, they were unaware of some Washoe County engineering drainage ditch requirements alongside the access road. And so this additional width would allow them to meet those engineering requirements. TUMWA is also requesting to amend the approximately 23,588 square foot temporary construction easement. So this was originally a short-term easement to just give TUMWA some staging area to construct their permanent water line and access road. However, they are now proposing to not only use this as a staging area to construct those permanent facilities, but also to assist the developer of the Harris Ranch subdivision. So the developer does need a temporary water line to support some construction activities. And so TUMWA and the developer have worked out an arrangement whereby TUMWA would hold this temporary easement and allow the developer as an assign to construct an additional temporary underground water line. So there would be two new water lines. One would be temporary, one would be long-term or permanent. The temporary water line would be in place for 2 years, and temporary revegetation would be required in the interim, and permanent revegetation would be required after that temporary water line were removed once the 2-year time period had expired. And if approved, Washoe County Parks would require a full revegetation plan that would sort of outline this revegetation process. I did just want to kind of go back a quick second and remind you all that, here we go, that some alternatives were explored when this easement was originally approved. Staff did ask about some alternative alignments. Specifically, there is existing potable water service to the Donovan Ranch subdivision that is located to the west of Sugarloaf Peak. But according to TUMWA, that water line does not have the capacity to serve the future Harris Ranch subdivision on top of its current demand. There's also water service to the Pebble Creek subdivision on the west side of Pyramid Highway. However, according to TUMWA, the Pebble Creek subdivision is in a lower pressure zone. So the water from the future Harris Ranch subdivision could serve as backup supply to that subdivision, but it couldn't serve the other way. It couldn't go uphill or up into that higher pressure zone. In terms of impacts and mitigation, the trail would not be impeded or closed during construction. Construction hours would be limited to Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. And as I mentioned, all undeveloped disturbed areas would be revegetated according to an approved revegetation plan. Both temporary revegetation and permanent revegetation would be required. And with that, staff is recommending approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. We also have Amanda Duncan on the line from TUMWA, who is available to answer questions on behalf of TUMWA.
Thank you, Sophia, for the presentation. Do we have any questions? I'm seeing some head nods. Before we take a vote, again, we'll open it up to public comments. Any public comments?
There is none.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion. I didn't want to read this long paragraph, but I will. Move to recommend that the Board of County Commissioners execute an amended easement agreement and amended easement deed between Washoe County and the Truckee Meadows Water Authority to change an existing access and water facilities easement from plus or minus 11,802 square feet to plus or minus 20,425 square feet, and to amend the terms of a temporary easement totaling plus or minus 23,588 square feet to allow for the construction, installation, and maintenance of a temporary below-ground water line on APN 534-521-01, part of Sugarloaf Peak open space at the additional appraised value of $1,485.
Second, this is Jennifer Oliver.
Okay, we have a first and second. All right, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to item 10, presentation on SB 73 of Nevada's 81st legislative session by Jamie Schroeder, Director of City of Reno Parks and Recreation.
Hello, everyone. With me, I have Callie Wilsey, and she is our Legislative Affairs Manager. And so she and I will be presenting together, and I will share my screen real quick. Okay. I think everyone can see that, correct? Fantastic. All right, Callie, I will kick it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for inviting us here to talk about Senate Bill 73, which also dovetails with the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Service Plan. We appreciate the opportunity to get in front of you and share information about this initiative that is working its way through the legislative session, which is currently happening. So for today's agenda, we're going to kind of just talk about where this bill came from, how we landed, where we were at. I know that you guys are, some of the challenges in the Parks and Rec world are not going to be unknown to you, but Jamie's going to talk us through some of the details that we see specifically in the city of Reno. And how we're going to, and our plan to update our service plan. I'll talk through the details of Senate Bill 73, and then we would be happy to answer any questions you guys may have. So just to kick us off, where did this bill come from, right? I think it's important for all of us to recognize kind of what's driving this bill. And really it started with the city of Reno's effort to update its master plan. And this was adopted in 2017. And as part of that effort, which was the city's largest public engagement effort in history, we really tried to set out a community vision. And what our residents said, first and foremost, is we want Reno to become a base for outdoor activities. They highlighted that as a priority. And so throughout the master plan, what does a base for outdoor activities mean? So what in that master plan, what you'll see is a lot of different policies and strategies that ensure our parks, our facilities, trails, and open space are well maintained, accessible, interconnected, that are meeting the demands of our constituents, and that they conserve and that we are conserving and protecting Reno's natural resources. Again, you guys are no strangers to this information, I am sure, but how integral Parks and Rec are to our communities. There's the economic value that they provide, healthy lifestyle, the environmental benefits, as well as the quality of life that they provide. And so, but in order to kind of reap those benefits and kind of meet that vision, there are some challenges that we're facing. And so I'm going to turn it over to Jamie to walk us through this section of the presentation. Jamie.
Sure. And as Kelly has said, I feel like I might be preaching to the choir here because I know our colleagues at Washoe County are in the same boat as the city of Reno, but nonetheless, so the challenges that we face in the world of parks and recreation really kind of fall into three categories, right? We have amazing growth that's happening within the region. And with that becomes an increased demand for facilities and amenities. And then anytime you have users, there's always that challenge with maintenance and keeping up with levels of maintenance needed to sustain all of the usage that we're seeing in both parks and rec facilities. So our growth is projected to continually increasing, and we're looking at about 25% as we head towards 2036, which is a significant amount of growth. And I took, as we started to put this together for where we need to go, I wanted to look at where we were just to get a full picture, historically speaking. So we went back 30 years, which is just really crazy to hear. But since 1991, our parks and recreational facilities have grown, but our staffing levels have not. So it was quite surprising to see that our staffing levels are actually less in today than they were back in 1991. However, we've added 27 parks, almost 25 miles of trail. We've taken on street landscape maintenance. We've added 2 recreation centers, and then we've expanded 7 existing parks. So it's been quite a challenge to keep up with everything that we have added, but really only seeing our budget increase slightly to keep pace with cost of living as far as expenses, but we didn't really get the ability to add bodies. So overall, where we currently stand today in the park side of things, we have 88 parks, over 700 developed acres, a ton of restrooms that we have to maintain, the very popular picnic shelters, play structures. If you haven't seen Idlewild Park, please check out our new playground at that facility. It's open and it's amazing. We also, in conjunction with Washington County School District, assist with maintenance of 19 school sites. We have a total of almost 36 miles of trail now, 2,100 acres of open space. This number, I love to see over 24,000 trees. I hope to see that continue growing. And then we have one nature study that we have put under the Parks Division, which is Oxbow Nature Study Area. And to manage all of that, we have roughly almost 36 full-time staff, which really isn't enough. When we look at the ICMA standard for park maintenance, we should actually have another 31 FTEs to be able to keep up with everything that we are responsible for maintaining. And then, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about our wonderful part-time staff that definitely supplement to help us do the work that we need to be able to get done on the weekends. And so that's roughly 6 FTEs, but really that kind of works out to about 33 people during the course of the fiscal year. On the recreation side of our operations, we have 2 rec centers, we have 3 community buildings, an arts and culture center, 4 pools, 5 ball fields that we specifically program that's not programmed by the Reno Youth Sports Association, 14 tennis courts. This number keeps growing to 16 pickleball courts. The ski hill, which you will know as Sky Tavern, our newest nature study area. In fact, I should remove the word proposed because Turkey Meadows Parks Foundation has gotten their long-term lease agreement approved. And then we operate our Sierra Kids before and after school program at 22 Washington County School District sites. So all of those operations are handled by 16 full-time staff. They're supplemented by 24 30-hour-a-week staff. And then this is our largest chunk of our temporary part-time staff, which is almost 73 FTE equivalent. So the biggest challenge that we really have is more on the park maintenance side. Recreation operations are a bit easier to scale. Not to say that they don't have their own challenges, but the one that is our biggest challenge is the park maintenance side because we don't charge admission to our parks. The idea of parks is really that social equity piece and access. And so it's a lot harder to ask for a larger budget when you don't have any revenue coming in. So our recreation side, it's a little bit easier to ask for more staff because we can generate more revenue if we increase enrollment to different things. And so it's not what we're able to do on the park side. However, there's a lot of demand for our parks. And so what you'll see here is back in 2020, even with the pandemic, with operations being slower elsewhere, they were not slower in our parks. And we had almost 2,000 requests for service requests in our parks. And so those were mostly for maintenance needs. They would be complaints about weeds or trash, broken irrigation systems, graffiti, and then even the homeless encampments that are in our parks. These requests also include the areas along the Truckee River. And so given that we really should be double in size, I do want to give credit to our parks crews because they are doing an amazing job with the resources that they have. And so, you know, our park inspection grade does happen to be average at a C, but I can't fault our crews because there's really, we have about 16 park maintenance workers and they're responsible for 75 acres each. And that's a lot of acreage to have to care for. So I would love to be able to see that increase if we can staff up a little bit based on funding. Our other large challenge is ongoing capital projects needs. So I know the county is in the same boat as we plan out over the next 10 to 20 years. We need to take into consideration adding new facilities to accommodate the growth, but also taking care of our existing facilities, which will always experience wear and tear and either reach their end of life or have to have significant upgrades or improvements done to them. And so what you see here, there's about 126 projects on the list. And what we anticipate to do all of this would cost roughly $189 million. And our system, the way our budget is set up at the City of Reno for capital improvement projects is we have $1.5 million available total. So that also is the funding for public works and police and fire and their capital needs as well. And so our team citywide does a really good job of discussing and prioritizing which department projects should get approved and funded. But clearly we can see that this isn't sustainable because of the fact that if just Parks and Rec's need is at 189 million and we only have 1.5 each year, eventually the teeter-totter, if you will completely tip and we won't be able to balance that as much. When Callie spoke of the master plan earlier, one of the things that the plan took a look at was the service area gaps. And so this map, even though it's tough to see in a PowerPoint, really what we want you to just sort of draw your eyes to is the gray areas. And those are the areas where access to the recreational opportunities are lacking. And you'll see a large part of it is in the North Valleys, but you'll also notice that it seems to be sort of at the edges of all the city of Reno boundaries as well. It's been a challenge to be able to build those facilities as fast as those neighborhoods are being built. So this slide talks about our facilities and amenities and what the demand is and basically what the gaps are. So what we often hear from the community is that we don't have enough pools. When I spoke of the 4 pools earlier, 2 of them are outdoor pools, so they're really open for just a couple of months when the temperatures allow. There's definitely a demand for more flat field space, which is like sports fields for soccer, football, lacrosse. We just don't have enough flat fields to accommodate all the different sports leagues that are out there. We've seen a huge increase in demand for dog parks and off-leash areas, and then not enough rec centers. We took a look at the how we compare to other agencies. We use the Trust for Public Lands to enter in our data of what we provide, what our population is, and it allows us to see how we compare to other agencies. So if we take a look and compare Reno to the Southern Nevada large cities, you'll see that we are lacking. And if we compare to the Gold Star agency in the state, which is Henderson, we're sorely lacking. And then when we compare ourselves to like cities in the Western United States, we still fall far behind on what we should be providing for a community our size. So one thing that we really want to spend some time and effort on is the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Service Plan. In 2008, the city of Reno adopted the Recreation Facilities Plan, which is the photo that you see on this slide. And so that plan was put together and adopted by council, has some great things of what we were going to build, and then the recession happened. So that plan, unfortunately, just sat on a shelf. And so we would like to go ahead and update that so that we can take a look at what we want to do in the future and how much that's going to cost. The one positive side is that this plan is still relatively accurate, right? We didn't have the ability to build a lot of the things that we wanted to back when this plan was adopted. So a good chunk of the information in this plan is still relevant. We just need to work on updating it. And we want to broaden it to now include open space. So we want this to be a very public process. And we want to make sure that we get as much input as possible. So we're going to be doing a community-wide survey. I think many of you might have seen the state did a survey as well for Parks and Recreation. So I'll certainly be reaching out to them to see if they will share their data because I'm sure it's very telling. It was quite the thorough survey. And then also allow for lots of public input at different meetings such as the Rec and Park Commission, our Planning Commission, and our City Council meetings. And I'll turn it back over to Callie.
Thanks, Jamie. So driven by what we heard in the master plan, the challenges that Jamie described, our council went through a strategic planning process, and they identified several priorities for this fiscal year for us to work on. And one of those was to identify dedicated and creative funding sources for parks. And so that is one of their priorities that they had directed staff to work on. In advance of every legislative session, the city of Reno is authorized to bill draft requests. And so our council goes through a public process where they vet multiple ideas for what they want to put those bills forward, the ones that the city is going to sponsor. And out through that process came SB 73. And so here's ultimately what that bill does. If the bill passes out of the legislative session, it really just initiates a process. You can go to the next one, Jamie. Sorry, I was jumping around a bit. It really just initiates a process for us. It allows the Reno City Council to establish a committee via resolution. Then the next step is that committee is formed with members as outlined in the bill. The committee then vets the needs that Jamie was talking about and potential revenue solutions with the community. That committee then recommends a potential tax solution and what those rates could be. And the Reno voters then determine whether to enact that recommendation on the 2022 ballot. So let's dive a little bit deeper into the bill just to give you some context of what's actually in there. So SB 73 details who is on the committee. So all members must be residents of the committee, and it is a mixture of both elected officials from the state level who represent this area, industry representatives, as well as users of parks and recreational facilities. The bill also outlines what the funds, the proceeds from the funds can be used for. This would include capital projects and ongoing operational costs for parks and recreational facilities, the preservation of open space, and the protection of the Truckee River and other natural resources within the city of Reno. Lastly, the bill outlines the revenue options that the committee is allowed ultimately to make a recommendation on. So throughout the process, we started the bill with 3 or 6 different revenue options. You will see 3 are struck out in red on this slide. And that is a result of conversations with stakeholders going through the legislative process. So as the bill stands now, as we have put forward several amendments, the committee would look at supplemental governmental services tax, which is the tax we pay at the DMV, real property transfer tax, and property tax. The last thing that we like to point out just in this presentation is, really this is about local conversation and a community-led process. If this bill is ultimately passed by the legislature, it becomes a ballot initiative, and City of Reno staff would no longer be advocates in that role. It would be really driven by whether the community wants to see this occur or not. Based on existing statutes, we cannot support or oppose ballot initiatives or candidates, and we cannot use city resources for advocacy. So we would be in a position to be providing factual information. And then lastly, I'll wrap up with SB 73. So we are in discussions with state lawmakers and interested stakeholders on SB 73, and we are working the bill through the legislative process. With that, I'll turn it over to Jamie to talk about next step for the service plan.
In parallel, so we want to also make sure that the service plan happens regardless of what happens with SB 73. In our master plan, it talks about us updating a recreation plan. And so we have decided to just do this in conjunction with the SB 73. So our next steps would be to launch that community survey that I spoke about a little bit earlier, take that community input from the survey, as well as meetings from stakeholders and any other public input we get from public meetings, incorporate that into the plan, review that with our elected officials to make sure that there isn't anything that we missed that they would desire to see in that plan. We want to be able to outsource the financial updates and that gap analysis review. As we say that we need the aquatics team would love this. If we say we need 6 more pools, we want to make sure that we have a reasonable and a number that goes with it that can sort of last what inflation would do over the next decade. And so we want to outsource that to a consultant. Then we would have the plan reviewed by our Recreation and Parks Commission, and then review and final adoption by our City Council. So those are really the next steps on that service plan. With that, I'll stop sharing so everyone can see everyone again.
Are you open for questions?
Callie, for your presentation. It was really informative. Go ahead, Commissioner Doolittle.
Thanks. The presentation was very good, Jamie. Thanks. I'm surprised not to see dogs in it at some point, but that's okay. I do have a couple of questions, though. Have you analyzed how you would compare if the agencies were combined? In other words, the city and the county were combined with all the facilities that both manage, how you would combine compared to the data you provided on the regional basis, on the large city basis in Southern Nevada, and nationally?
No, we have not done that yet. Another stakeholder that we spoke with earlier in the process has brought up that same point, and that's something that we definitely want to take a look at and talk to our colleagues with the county and Sparks, because it would be a very interesting piece of information to discover.
A couple of follow-up questions. Have you looked at repurposing lesser used facilities that you have? In other words, for example, tennis courts or basketball courts that aren't being utilized very much and repurposing them into, into other facilities. I won't guide that question. I think you get what I'm talking about.
I think you want to go on that one. We have in some instances, a prime example really is if we, at the Reno Tennis Center. So we know that pickleball is an exploding sport. Right. And so the concessionaire at that facility who runs it for us approached us and said, instead of just redoing these 2 tennis courts, how would you feel about me turning those into 8 pickleball courts? And we supported that. And of course, it's beautiful and amazing, and they are definitely being used now.
And the last question, has the county been involved in any part of the bill? Have you had discussions with county staff relative to any of this, or is this solely a Reno effort?
I'll let Callie talk about the conversations there.
Absolutely. So the county is definitely aware of the bill, and we've had multiple conversations about kind of where the bill stands. But the county has not expressed an interest in joining in on this bill in particular.
Okay, thank you very much. And again, very, very nice presentation. Good job.
This is Greg Shorts. I was looking at the committee and the breakdown of the committee, and I was just curious why, what's the logic for making it so heavily industry? More than half the committee is industry representatives or business representatives. And 2 are general public and 2 more are elected officials. It seems like a fairly strange layout for the committee, and I was just wondering if why that was.
Sure, I can try to tackle that one. Thank you for the question. So I think what we've learned through some of these processes is it's really important also to have stakeholders on those committees that are likely going to be more critical of the approach and what we're after. It really brings a critical eye to that process. And because those industries originally, when the bill was drafted, those are all the industries that are heavily impacted by at least one of the particular taxing mechanisms that the committee could vet. I think probably it's slightly skewed at the moment because of the different taxing mechanisms that have been removed from there. But that's kind of the thought process around there, is making sure that that committee really serves as a critical eye for the community and a voice that will really kind of vet something that could be supported across the board if it gets to the ballot.
And if I may, this is Doug Doolittle again. I saw the makeup of the committee too, and I had the same basic question, but I also realized that you need advocates after the fact, and having as much business in that committee meeting with the added knowledge of being on those committees and talking with their peers, it broadcasts that message and provides more advocacy when you have to get before the voters.
If I may, Chair Chen, this is Eric Crump. Yeah, Eric Crump for the record. Thank you, Jamie and Kylie, for the presentation. I'm very interested and would love to have some further conversations on the development of the service plan and potential collaboration with Washoe County and City of Reno. As you might recall, we actually recently just finished the completion of our comprehensive park master plan as well. And one of the recommendations out of that park master plan was the development of service plans. So I think there might be some opportunities for collaboration on that piece, certainly.
Oh, absolutely. I will, I'll get together with our lead staff member, Claudia Hansen, and we'll schedule a meeting.
I would concur. This is Doug again. I would concur, Eric. I think that's an excellent idea. I mean, we've had so many different discussions individually, so it'd be nice to get together and see how the plans may be separate from one another, but overlap in other areas, and maybe get the combined resources to be a little more workable. So we're not driving past each other on the way to work all the time.
I also have another follow-up question. On the map that showed those the service areas where you have gaps, were you only looking at City of Reno facilities, or okay?
Yeah, and so what Commissioner Doolittle brings up about if we were to include Washoe County and Sparks for the overall amenity comparison, that map would likely get updated as well so that we could get a global picture, if you will.
Yeah, and I believe we actually have that information in our master plan. We used recreation facilities.
Oh, great.
Identify gaps.
Okay, thank you.
And many of those areas back up to open space, which that opens up a whole other can of worms in terms of accessibility, because people can just go out and explore without having any not having a curated experience, which there's value in that too.
Sure.
I also have one more question, if I can, Commissioner Chen. Has there been any discussion, City of Reno? It's interesting to see the maps and show those areas of gaps in the service plans, and that, they look to be, like you had said, Jamie, those areas that are outside kind of the city core and potentially probably a lot of areas that have been, recently annexed, maybe in the last decade or something. Has there been any kind of conversations with staff or elected or policymakers, City of Reno, about, the impacts of that, of all those acquisitions that have happened over the last 10 years and the impacts of that?
There's been some discussions, and that's where I really want to take a look at fleshing out that open space and trails component of this plan, because what I don't want to miss out on is an opportunity to, as we take a look at all the trails, I'll just simplify it and just stick to trails for right now. If an area has been annexed and we're getting ready to put in some sort of a development community, I would love to be able to make sure that we take a look at what's around it. And as we look at amenities that we want to require in these new developments. If there's a trail nearby, whether it's a city trail or a county trail, let's try to increase the connectivity so that all of our users can get a better experience and they don't, we stick a trail that if we would have moved it 5 miles south, it suddenly now connects to an existing trail.
For the record, Colleen Wallace-Barn, if I can ask a quick question. In the presentation, let me just pull it up so I make sure I'm looking at the right slide. So you had talked about your ongoing capital project needs. So is your 1.5 million that's available annually, is that just a standing item that you guys have, and then you obviously vet, right, your priorities based on that 1.5 million? Okay.
Yes. Yeah, and our finance team is working to try to increase that available pot of money for us a little bit more each year. And so we're looking forward to that just because there are so many needs. And I know the county is just in the same boat of, the wallet just isn't big enough to get everything that we would like to get done.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
I got a question for whoever knows the answer kind of thing. When is the last time that Parks and Rec or for city or county has tried to take something to the voters around parks? How long has that been? Park funding.
If I may, probably in 2000, we went forward with the Parks and Libraries bond. So it's been 21 years.
WC1, 2000.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
That was
Okay.
Voter approved bonds.
We have a very much different voting public here than we had 21 years ago. So I would think that might be something that would be more likely to be passed than a lot of people think. Your bonds or whatever taxes, whatever you have come out of this process. I'm just saying, I think it would be more likely to be passed.
Yeah, that's what we hope for this last election cycle. We saw several communities across the country that had a bond initiative on their ballot, and they overwhelmingly passed. And so one thing that's a little different with SB 73 is that it's not only capital, but it's also maintenance. It would fund maintenance, which is a huge and critical component for us.
And I think our public would understand that.
I have one last comment. Jamie, I just wanted to congratulate you on Scion Park. It's a highly used park in the South area. I mean, I drive by there almost daily, and it's used all the time, particularly the dog park. I mean, it was both the small and the large one, and the flat fields are getting used now. And great job on putting that together and getting it open.
Yeah, thank you. No, that was all retired parks manager Jeff Mann's doing, and it is a fantastic park. And I am often at the dog park with my dogs over there as well.
I would expect that.
Any other questions or comments for Jamie or Callie?
For the record, Colleen Wallace-Barnum, thank you so much, Jamie and Callie, for coming and doing the presentation today. Very informative.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Bye, you guys. Have a great rest of your meeting.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us today. All right. We'll go ahead and move on to item 11, presentation on Keep Truckee Meadows Beautiful's mission, impact, and partnership with Washoe County Parks by Matt Weber.
Hi, everyone. My name is Matt Weber. I'm with Keep Truckee Meadows Beautiful, K2MB, and my title is Adopt a Spot Coordinator. I've been here for about 2 years, and I love it. As the Adopt a Spot Coordinator, I work with mostly volunteer groups and doing cleanups and other park projects in the region. So today's presentation will be about 5 minutes. I'm going to talk a little bit about KTMB, some of our cleanup programs, our partnership here with Washoe County, our impact, and then some of our upcoming programs. So KTMB is a 501c3 nonprofit. We've been operating in the Truckee Meadows since 1989. So for about 30 years, we've been developing strong partnerships with many of our local community partners, corporate partners, municipal partners, and civic groups. They pretty much form the foundation of what KTMB does. And when I say municipal partners, our big three are Reno, Sparks, and Washoe County. We also do work with BLM, U.S. Forest Service, the Nature Conservancy, as well as other nonprofits in the region. Our staff is, we have 9 employees. There's 7 full-time and 2 part-time employees, as well as 2 AmeriCorps program members. And on average, we engage about 5,000 volunteers annually to accomplish our goals, which is education as well as cleanups. So speaking of cleanups, just give you a quick overview of what we do. We've been setting up volunteer cleanups events in parks, trails, sections of the river, open spaces, business corridors, neighborhoods in the Truckee Meadows since 1994. Our signature program is the Adopt a Spot program. You probably might have seen the blue and white signs around town in different parks and trailheads and sections of the river. That, along with our sister program, which is our neighborhood cleanups or our one-off cleanups, provide residents and other groups a chance to clean up the region, as well as make it a wonderful place to live, work, and play for all of us. It's a volunteer-driven program, and the awesome thing about it is that anyone can participate. We often have school groups and businesses, nonprofits, families, and HOAs, scouting groups, sororities, fraternities, churches. They come to us and with cleanup ideas because they want to keep their community clean and safe. One of the things that there's kind of a misconception about what we do is it's all litter cleanup and litter abatement, but it's actually, we do a lot of great beautification projects in our community. Of course, litter is a huge part of it. As we grow, there's going to be more litter, but the park projects that we do kind of match the needs of our municipal and agency partners. And so, in addition to picking up litter, we also spread mulch. We do weeding and trimming of vegetation, dog waste removal. We paint over graffiti or remove it. We sweep park pathways and courts, planting if assigned or kind of if necessary. We do painting and standing as well. And I think the 2 biggest things that we do is we're kind of like our volunteers are like the eyes and ears of the area. So they report vandalism as well as any kind of unsafe conditions, like a broken swing or something that could potentially pose a risk to the park goers. One of the cool things that I love about our program is that it's completely free, and anyone and everyone is able to participate. And it's free because we have a grant from the Washoe County Health District that provides the funding for this program. So if people come to us and they want to do some good in their community, we provide them with the tools, supplies, our staff time and support, anything necessary so that they can get the job done. And we love that. So one of the cool things that we have here is we actually have at our office on Plumas, right next to the Reno Tennis Center, we have 2 storage containers, these Connex, and they're filled with rakes and shovels and brooms and hose and everything that anyone would ever need for a successful cleanup. So, and also want to thank Washoe County for, we only had 1 at one point, but now we have 2. Thanks to Bartley Ranch for taking care of us, Colleen and Jeff and Ranger Brett there too. So, and we'll definitely make use of it. So we're excited. And if you're ever in the neighborhood and you want to stop by and take a look at our tool shed, it's pretty awesome. I kind of love bragging about it. It's pretty cool. As a person who loves working with his hands, it's kind of like my happy place. Another thing that's really cool that I love and kind of getting more personal is that, I'm from Reno. I've seen the need for, making sure that our parks are clean and safe. And when I project lead cleanups, which I've been doing a lot lately because I really enjoy it, you can see a real tangible difference and a beautiful result. To have, to see the before and after, it really does, it's really a cool thing to think. And what I really enjoy too is the sense of unity and friendship and camaraderie that these groups have while they're participating. It's really something that it's the best part of what I do is really working with the folks and seeing, especially families. I kind of got into volunteer work a little bit late in my life, and I kind of regret that. And to see families getting out and getting out and doing some community service, and young, old, it's a very inclusive environment, and that's what I love about what I do. And families also too, they teach. It's a good way to teach kids community and even a work ethic and working together. So as far as our partnership with Washoe County, it's very strong. I can honestly say working with Denise Evans and the Rangers is the best part. Such a pleasure. I love setting up projects with them. The collaboration, we've had some very successful events in my 2 years and prior to that as well. And just a great group of people who really have passion about what they, the parks that they steward. And I love it. In fact, last weekend, we actually had 2 park projects with Washoe County. We removed 8 cubic yards of green waste, pine needles at Davis Creek Park with Ranger Nick. He's an awesome host. And we also removed 6 yards of leaves and weeds from Rancho San Rafael with Ranger Bob. And then this Sunday, we're actually working with a group to remove dog waste and other debris from the Rancho San Rafael off-leash pasture with Ranger Celia. They're going to turn on the irrigation so we can get some of that waste before it goes into the watershed or groundwater too. So I'm actually going to share my screen here. Show you some pictures. So here's some pictures from last week. This is Boys Team Charity at Davis Creek. It was a great group. They worked really hard, and we're just really good. We've been working with them for about this last 6 months, and we're gonna basically every Saturday, the first Saturday of every month, we're gonna have them doing projects. They've been at Barley Ranch, they've been at Rancho, and this last weekend they were at Davis.
Matt, I'm not sure if your screen is sharing. I'm not able to see it.
Is it now?
I don't see any photos if you can try to share it again.
Oh, there you go, cool. How's that?
Yes, now we can see.
Cool.
Thank you.
I guess you had to click the one. So this is Boys Team Charity, which I said before. They were a great group. They did some really good things at Davis Creek. They cleared out the RV and large group picnic area that's going to be opening up, I think next month. Ranger Nick was awesome, and he was just, it was good because we cleared out some of the pine needles, which not only makes it look better, but also it's good for fire mitigation as well. And then this is the Blue Key Society of UNR, which is like an honor society. They removed a bunch of debris and leaves and weeds at Rancho San Rafael, the Nevada Farms and Family area. Used to be the Great Basin Adventure. They had a great time. Our AmeriCorps Haley was the project leader, and they had some great pictures, and they had a good time there, did some good things for our community. So as far as our impact, I was thinking about, I wanted to give you a kind of a good representation of what we have been doing. Last year, during 2020, we actually shut down organized cleanups for 4 months, from mid-March through mid-July. So I didn't think that was a really good indication, and I thought 2019 numbers would be a little too old. So I decided just to give you the first quarter of 2021, which is January, February, and March. So here are some of the numbers. We did 83 cleanups. We had a total of 996 volunteers, which contributed 2,146 volunteer hours, which was worth $67,780 in volunteer hours. And that number is based on the hourly wage of $23.82, which is set forth It's kind of the industry standard for volunteering. We removed 37,260 pounds of trash, as well as 8,680 pounds of green waste. So that includes weeds, willows, any kind of grasses, and just basically green waste like wood, pine needles, stuff like that. So, and like I mentioned before, we couldn't do any of this without the generosity and support of the Washoe County Health District. And so we appreciate them. Thank you for that. And as far as our upcoming programs, we are on May 1st, 2021, we're going to do KTMB's Great Community Cleanup. We've been doing this for the last 17 years. We'll have about 700, maybe 750 volunteers at about 25 different sites throughout the Truckee Meadows. Some of the Washoe County sites that we'll be doing are going to be Bartley Ranch, Crystal Peak, Durascar, Lockwood, North Valleys, and Rancho Centerville. Thanks, Denise, for submitting those sites. We'll get a lot of work done in one day. It'll be from 8 a.m. to 12 noon. Currently, right now, we actually have filled up, but we're working on opening up new sites as well as accommodating some of the volunteers they're having. So yeah, I think people are really looking forward to getting outside. I know from the conversations I've had with some of the groups, they couldn't do anything in 2020, so they plan on doubling up in 2021. So I think it's going to be a big year. KTMB's bicentennial flower planting, that's in conjunction with the City of Reno. Bicentennial Park is on the corner of First and Ralston downtown, right across from Wingfield. And they have a really great flower beds, two areas, and we'll have about 30 volunteers each day, Saturday and Sunday. And we'll not only we'll kind of plant some of the flowers there. We'll also kind of make it look better, beautification as well. Lindsay Panton, who is our programs director, she heads that up. She's also the caretaker of the Idlewild Park's sensory garden, which if you haven't had a chance to check out, I recommend that. It's right next to the playground, the older playground in Idlewild Park. And then KTMB's Truckee River Cleanup Day. It's pretty much it's the same concept as the Great Community Cleanup, except for it's more watershed focused. It'll be September 25th this year, which is a Saturday. It'll be from 9 a.m. to 12 noon. And so it's kind of the same concept, but it's more focused on the water. And then another program that's widely known for KTMB is our Christmas tree recycling. That's after Christmas and the first few weeks in January. So people can recycle their trees. That mulch, the trees are mulched, and then that mulch is used in different park projects, Reno Sparks, and Washoe County. So that's pretty much I have for you. If you're interested in any of our programs or want to check us out, we also do have a really robust education program. You can visit our website, ktme.org. Or if you're interested in volunteering, you can just Google us. We're actually the first. If you just Google volunteer, we're the first one to come up. So yeah, that's pretty cool there. So I'll go ahead and take your questions if you have any. And
thank you, Matt, for the presentation. Great to see that you had such a successful first quarter, and I'm sure your upcoming projects will also be successful. So thank you for everything that you do for our community.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Commissioners, do we have any questions or comments for Matt? Okay. Thank you for your time and for joining us today. We appreciate it. All righty, we'll go ahead and move on to item 12, Program Park of the Month, Wilbur D. May Arboretum and Botanical Garden Education Programming, presented by Laura Frazier.
Hi everyone, I'm Laura Frazier. I'm our Arboretum educator here at the Wilbur D. May Arboretum and Botanical Garden. We're located at Rancho San Rafael Park. And so I have a little presentation for you. I'm going to share my screen. Share. Can you see it? Awesome. Okay, so I'm an AmeriCorps member here, so my service term lasts from September 2020 until August of 2021. And I'm just going to go through a few of the programs that I've done since I've been here and a few of the programs that'll be coming up in the near future too for the end of my service term. So one of the first things I did when I started here was I started a sidewalk chalk obstacle course on the weekends for families. So that ran from September until the end of October. And so on Fridays, I would go out to our sidewalks. I'd draw all of these obstacle courses everywhere. And then all throughout the weekends, I'd come back, kind of touch them up. And that was really cool too, because I got to see families and community members of all ages doing all these obstacle courses everywhere. And I decided to do this too, because I thought it would be a really great way to encourage families and community members to get to the Arboretum without having to worry about like social distancing in place. You don't have to worry about large groups. It's kind of a come as you want to type of thing. And it was really fun too, because I advertised all this on Facebook. So I was able to see firsthand the community's response, and everybody gave really positive feedback for it. So that was also really encouraging for me for my first program that I did start here. And so I'll show you a few of the pictures from it. So I did like hopscotch, standing long jump, follow the line. I did a Pac-Man course one weekend. I did a Halloween themed weekend. So it was a fun thing, and I got to really switch it up. And it's something I'd really love to start for the summer months and the spring months as well, because it really encourages everybody just to get out and have fun here and see everything that's in bloom and everything that's to offer at the Arboretum. Another thing that I continued with when I was here was our Little Sprouts program. So that's normally with our early childhood, and that's ages 2 to 5. And in the past, it was a program that happened once a month, and it had about 20 to 30 children each month. But because of COVID, we really had to spread that out and allow for social distancing. So instead, I changed it to once a week with a smaller group, and we did that at the ranch house. And we had about 4 to 5 kids that were able to come each week. So we still were able to get the same number of people that attended it, but it was just spread out throughout a month. So for the first month in October, we did rainbow leaves. So we taught kids about why leaves change color, why they fall. And then in November, we did a squirrel story. So why squirrels store food for the winter. And both of those two, we went outside and did outdoor exploration. We saw everything firsthand too. So that was really fun. But unfortunately, because of the increase in COVID, we had to cancel all in-person activities. But with the summer months and the warmer weather too, hopefully we'll be able to host more things outside and still allow for social distancing as well. Another thing I started when I was here was virtual story time. So before, we had somebody from the Washoe County Library System. They would come and read a story every single week in the summertime, but because of COVID, again, it had to be canceled. So I thought, switch it to virtually. And so every Thursday, we have one story with a craft or activity kids can do as a follow-up. And with that, I had our volunteers read a story. And in the nicer months, we were able to have them be in their favorite gardens, introduce like families to the gardens, and then hopefully also encourage them to come and visit it once they read the story and everything. And that's all seasonally based, so winter, fall, spring, summer. And that's also advertised on Facebook too, to get the word out to different family members, like different community members. And then in the month of February, I released our plant press kit. So we did this back in February, so that way it could be ready for the spring months when everything's in bloom again, and really encourage kids to get outside and look at everything that's happening. So the kits included a plant press, instruction sheet, activity sheet, and a little paint kit, so everybody could kind of personalize their little plant press and make it their own. And so we had 20 kits, and we donated them on a first come, first served basis. And that was really well received by the public as well. And I think it would be a great program to offer again in the future, because it just really engages children in their natural world and gets them outside exploring and being back out in nature too. I've also been working with UNR interns. So during the fall semester, I worked with an intern from the UNR. His name was Nolan, and he did a virtual video tour of the Arboretum. So he was here in the fall and got the fall season of the Arboretum, and it had also snowed while he was here. So we were able to get really beautiful footage of the Arboretum covered in snow. And so after talking to Bill, we would really love it if we could get spring footage and summer footage and kind of compile all of that into one year-long virtual video of the Arboretum. And then I'm also currently working with another UNR intern. His name is Jared, and he's putting together Zoom classes on Indigenous peoples and plant use, and specifically plants that we can find within the Arboretum itself. So then after these classes, people can go to the Arboretum and then see the plants firsthand, what they look like, and then also just know their history and their uses as well. And then because of COVID, so many things have been switching to online. So I've been doing a lot of online activities and educational things for different ages. So we focus on early childhood, elementary, middle school / high school, and then just kind of an all ages thing. So I kind of switched between doing educational things, but also fun arts or crafts activities for everybody to do. So just a few examples was for early childhood, I had a sensory leaf paint, pine tree nature craft, and fake snow. Elementary, we did leaf rubbings and a snowflake cycle. And then the snowflake cycle had a lot of activities for kids to go outside and play in the snow and do a lot of experiments with snow firsthand. And that was really fun to see too. Middle school, we've done some tree ring activities, parts of a flower, and then just for all ages, DIY bird feeders, holiday ornaments, and different types of scavenger hunts that you can be done within the Arboretum itself. And then looking for just kind of the end of my service term for these last few months, I have started a pizza and salsa garden kit. So I started all of those seedlings up in our greenhouse, and then in the months of June and July, they'll be ready, and we'll give those out to families as well. So each kit will come with their plants or herbs, an instruction sheet on how to take care of them, and then a fun little recipe index card on different salsas you can make with the stuff you've grown or different pizzas you can make. And then I will also be starting a gnome scavenger hunt here at the Arboretum. So we'll have these ceramic gnomes that are between 12 and 15 inches tall, and they'll be hidden throughout the Arboretum in the months of June, July, and August. To also just encourage families to get out here and check out the Arboretum, and then also find little hidden gnomes everywhere. And then I'll also just continue with spring and summer online activities as well. And that is what I've been doing here at the Arboretum.
Thank you, Laura, for the presentation. Great job.
Yeah,
Creativity of the activities. I'm sure families really appreciated that to keep their children engaged during this time. So very neat to see what you've been doing, and I'm sure all your experience has been worthwhile. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you guys for having me here today.
Hey, this is Doug Doolittle. Laura, a fantastic program that you put on. It's really interesting to see all the different things that you do for the kids in the community. It's nice to have the activity in the park. It's nice to have you on board. Great job.
Thank you so much. I have enjoyed it here so much. I moved here from Iowa, and Reno was such a change, but this place is so beautiful. There's so much to do. And I've had so much fun with the job too.
Well, you have a few more months to enjoy it. Or you could just stay here permanently and live and get a start with a job with the county.
I know, I've kind of thought about that. I think it's gorgeous here. There's no cornfields around, and it makes me so happy. So I couldn't be happier.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Laura.
Right.
Thanks.
Stephanie, this is Doug. I had told Denise earlier that I have to leave for a doctor's appointment, so I'm going to sign off for the rest of the day. And sorry to be leaving early, but see ya.
No problem. Thanks for joining us, Doug. Okay. We will go ahead and move on to item 13, Parks Reports.
For the record, Colleen Wallace Barnum, Park Operations Superintendent. I just wanted to highlight a few things to make sure you guys are aware. So as of March 15th, we made the change to go to 50% capacity for our facilities. We actually did, it's really early, but we did our first amphitheater program. It was kind of a neat program. It was for Vietnam veterans, and it was a recognition program, and they had under 200 people. So I think our max was 250, so they were under 200. So just so you're aware, we're working with groups and making sure that a combination of our staff and the groups are following all the COVID protocols. So far, we've done well. It's been a slow progression, which is great. We're not getting overwhelmed with too many events. We are getting a lot of requests. So I believe our reservations are going to continue to pick up. So just want to make sure you were all aware of that. In addition, seasonal hiring is happening. We're hopefully going to be having, our seasonal staff back on board as the growing season starts. We've already turned on water for irrigation. So things will start greening up. And that's really all I had. If anybody has questions on any of the reports, I'm happy to answer any.
Thank you, Colleen. That's exciting to hear that more reservations and programming is occurring. So I think everyone's just about time and ready for that. Okay, not hearing any other comments or questions. We'll go ahead and move on to item 14, Director's Report.
Good afternoon. For the record, Dave Solero, Director of Community Service Department, Assistant County Manager. Just a fairly brief report this afternoon. Wanted to update you on a couple of items, actions taken by the Board of County Commissioners in March. On March 9th, the board recommended the sponsorship of the Art Town Festival at Rancho San Rafael. So as you'll recall, that was an item that came through this board for a recommendation to the board, and the board did approve that at their March 9th meeting. Additionally, on March 23rd, the board approved the sale of water rights associated with some main stem Truckee River water rights to the, I believe it was to Great Basin Land and Water on behalf of the Pyramid Lake Paiute Tribe. And this was in association of the River Bend project that we've been working on, the subdivision and the boundary adjustment for that property out there. So good movement on both of those projects by the board. And we are continuing as well this month to take golf agreements to the board. So Washoe Golf Course, which you've seen, as well as the proposal from First Tee and Kalamazoo Golf for Wild Creek. So continuing the process to take care of those amenities within our community, and really appreciate all you've been doing for parks and open space in our community. That's the end of my report today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Okay. Commissioners' comments. I'm not having any comments. Okay. All right. Public comments.
There's no public comment.
Okay. Thank you, Denise. All right. We'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting at 3:51 p.m. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. See you next month.